Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Real Life with Richard. This episode is entitled Not Done Yet. Sorry for the delay. One of the things that people consistently say to succeed in the podcast space, YouTube, broadcasting, or whatever it is you do in life, you want to be consistent. And I apologize for falling off of the consistency, but thus the title of the podcast, Real Life with Richard. Here in my office recording today, and what this episode is going to be and cover pretty much everything that's happened since my last episode. First, I'll share with you, I've actually recorded two additional episodes that I have not published since the last published episode. And you say, but Richard, why didn't you publish it? Great question. Couple reasons. We have what we call post production. I try to record one and done. That's podcasts like Real Life with Richard. Again, I don't want to overstage, but I still want a professional presentation. Quite frankly, because of the graphic nature of what I share in those two episodes, I felt I needed to put a disclaimer on it, and not to mention that the video broke up, so I had two different pieces. Long story short, post-production, it threw my schedule off. At the time, I was working another full-time job and position, and I'll mention that later in this episode, but because of the editing and work I had to do, through my off schedule, I didn't get it done. And because the material is not time sensitive, I can come back to it, and hopefully here in the coming weeks, I'll get those episodes published. So a bit of a teaser, excuse me, and reason to stay tuned. In short, well, what had happened was life. In March, a couple of big events. My most recent position, I have been recruited, applied for, and accepted a grant funded position as a product manager in this organization, basically managing the resources for a website space I was familiar with because I had led a team doing that before I retired from the state of Mississippi. Well, I went in with my eyes wide open because the grant I started April 2024. April 2023, 2.5 months after I retired from the state of Mississippi. And it clearly said the grant was scheduled to end December 2023. So anything beyond 2023 was a bonus and a blessing. When we made it to March, about mid-March, they informed us that they were not going to renew funding for the grant, and thus my position got phased out, and that put me back into retirement mode and consultant mode. So that said, this channel, this podcast, everything, I don't currently have any sponsors. I'm self-sponsored, and now this is yet again a part of how I make my living. So if you're looking for a speaker, a life coach, an IT professional, consultant, give me a call. I'll be happy to help you out. Direct message me, if you will, or use the contact that I'll provide in this video or audio, depending on how you're getting the information. Even though it was unexpected at the end, it was a good, fun job. So I do miss it, and I thank those who gave me the opportunity to do that. Excuse me, forgive me. Two, another major event that happened in March. My nephew Jonathan and his wife Annika. Shout out, Fortigan slip. Shout out to Jonathan and Annika. They got married in March, and our 5-year-old was a flower girl in the wedding. So that was a happy, fun event, and serving as pastor, that Although I've only married two couples, the last couple I married, it was reminiscent. It's fun, having positive, fun things to do. Although I was not the presiding pastor in this wedding, it was fun. It was a fun, happy wedding. That brings us to April. Only 2.5 weeks in April. We've been pretty busy. I hit the ground running to reestablish my business. Scott Solutions LLC is my formal registered business providing professional IT solutions and support. So I went to revamp and build that back up since I was no longer in that full-time position I was working in. But I also had been pre-registered to go to the Texas Linux Fest. I had not been to the Texas Linux Fest since 2012 when it was in San Antonio, but this year it was in Austin, Texas, and I could not wait to put my electric vehicle on the road. So it was the first time I've attended this event in 12 years, and it's the first real road trip where it required multiple stops for me to drive my electric vehicle. 4 stops going, all non-electrified America charging stations. Seamless. Some were more, some smaller towns and a little bit more remote. One, in fact, there were only 2 chargers. Thank God I did not experience some of the nightmares I hear some of the YouTubers speak of arriving at charging stations that are offline. Although one of the stops I made, the charging station I used was great, but it was a Circle K in front, and I'm like, well, I could use that as a backup. Thank God I didn't need the backup because the 2 Circle K chargers were offline and were unusable. I did see a couple of Electrify America in 2 of my stop stations that were charging stations, just the individual station themselves were offline, but there were several others. So I was able to get a charge. So what does that mean? I am more confident now after making that trip, because going from Jackson, Mississippi to Austin, Texas, coming back through San Antonio, drove in through Dallas, came back in through San Antonio and Houston. I had driven in, through, or around every major city in Texas except El Paso, and I am confident after covering approximately 1,000 miles in my EV in 3 days that I can drive my electric vehicle wherever I like. However, there's a caveat. If it requires more than 2 stops, I'll fly. But that's no different than when I was driving a gas vehicle. Normally about a 6-hour threshold. That's from Jackson, Mississippi, sits on I-20, right in the middle of Atlanta, Georgia, and Dallas, Texas, traveling 20. But so if it's more than approximately a 6-hour drive, it's just worth it to fly. As I get older, the wear and tear on my body is a bit much, and it's not because of electric vehicle. I'm confident now that the charging infrastructure, although nowhere near as vast as gas, it is comparable enough where I can get to where I need to go. What I witnessed while attending the Texas Linux Fest, I promise I wouldn't geek out too much in this particular podcast because this is not the space. If you want to hear and see me geek out more or speak more about the technical nature of what I saw and experienced, my moniker on YouTube is the Black Christian Geek. Richard L. Scott, the Black Christian Geek. Check me out. I have a general tech channel, I have a Linux channel, and I have a Mac channel. I don't post as much on the Mac channel anymore because wasn't getting much traction or feedback. But what I experienced while at the Texas Linux Fest, there were approximately 300 attendees there. The first session I sat in, looked around, I said, interesting. I was the only black person in the room, and I was beginning to think I was the only one there. But when I walked out, I saw a couple of other black men. If I'm not mistaken, I counted eight, eight of us in all, including me. Only eight black men, no black women. So we talk about diversity, um, involvement, inclusion, equity, um, the importance of being involved, the being present, and representation. That's the word I was trying to think of. Representation, being represented. I'm determined to do my part to try to attend more conferences, so I am there and I am present. I only saw one black female who was an exhibitor and on the showroom floor, and quite frankly, um, we just briefly talked about it, but I'm thinking, how interesting. In 2024, it's still important that we be present to make sure we're represented and our voices are heard. And doing so, to be the change I desire, I volunteered via the survey form, and I asked some of the organizers if I could be a part of the Texas Linux Fest 2025 planning, and hopefully I can bring some of this to light, lend some voice to it, and even moving forward, make a point that I present myself as a speaker, so that I'm no longer just an attendee, but I'm actually speaking. Because surely as none of us are present, there were certainly no speakers. There were a couple of female speakers, one that I sat in session for, but very, very little underserved community, minorities, as in women, people of color, and in my instance, particularly black people. It was just very, very little representation. I counted approximately 30 women, mostly on Friday, because the shout out to the Austin Women in Technology, AWT, Sarah and Emily. I met them on Friday. They were present, and I think some other members of their organization that focuses on empowering and making women aware that women are involved in technology, but still only approximately 30 women. So out of 300 attendees, there's still only like 10%. So again, trying to be a part of the change I desire. So it's important that we be present. Other than that, just a few brief statements in closing. I do intend fully to get back on track with attending this. One of my clients reached out to me yesterday. Won't mention who it is because I don't have their permission to do so. But not quite 2.5 weeks from being employed, it is nice that I'm building my clientele back up, and I've already received some compensation for what I provide. So again, if you could use a speaker, a life coach, a minister, or someone who's gifted in the professional IT space, I'm your guy. I'd be happy to help you out. Again, this is Richard L. Scott with Real Life with Richard, and stay tuned for future episodes. Thanks for watching or listening, however you're getting this, and God bless.